All right, the recording has started now. Okay, thank you, Philip, for joining my first ever podcast for the Orlando Magic. Yeah, we're just here to talk about the 2023 season, which was really well. This is Locked On Magic. If you guys don't know, I will have his channel link in the description, so you guys can go over there, subscribe, check out his channel. Good guy on doing. You can talk about your channel. How long you've been
Doing
covering?
everything. Yeah, no, no. Yeah, no, you could find my podcast at Locked On Magic. It's on YouTube. It's wherever you download podcasts. I've been doing Locked On Magic now for the last, I think this is season 8 of doing it.
Yeah.
I'm also the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. If you want to see my written work, that's the best place to find that there. We're in full off-season mode. Still doing some season recap stuff, but full off-season mode as we get ready for what's going to be a really, really interesting offseason for the Magic.
Yeah, and it's probably slower in the off season, right? Not as much.
It's things. I mean, I'm a game person, so I love games. I care about games. Everyone wants me to talk fake trades and do all that. And I'm just like, no, like there's games going on. We're in the playoffs. I don't really want to focus on that. But now we're getting to the how do we make this team better and trying to have similar conversations to what I'm sure Jeff Weltman and his staff are having. I always joke with people that the media is usually 2 weeks behind on everything. And so I'm sure every discussion we've had, they've already moved on to something new that we're not expecting. So I eagerly wait to see what the Magic do as much as anyone else.
Yeah, no, that's great. We need more representatives for the Magic because I feel like it's a small market team, but how we're doing now with all the success that we're having, we need more exposure. And I feel like your channel is doing that because, every team has a locked on person and you're the locked on for the Magic. So that's great. So yeah, I just want to talk about 2023 season. Like what I was expecting, honestly, was this team to be just a borderline play-in team. I did not expect playoffs. I was really happy with how the season went. What is your insight and what is your thoughts about how the season went?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at how teams generally progress into being a contender and being a playoff team, typically they have this intermediate step where they're like a 500 team where they just kind of figure out how to win consistently for the first time,
right?
And that's the kind of season I was expecting this year. Like I was expecting like 39 to 42 win season. Like the team still has its ups and downs. They're in the play-in hunt. I had them in the 9-10 game at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
But it quickly, was very apparent early on that this season was very different, that they were a little bit better than that. And in some respects, maybe we should have seen it coming because while last year they made a really big step getting to 34 wins, it was important to note that they were 29 and 28 over the last 57 games or the last 2/3 of the season. That was kind of their 500 season. You look at Magic history.
Right.
1994, the Magic, or 1993 rather, the Magic missed the playoffs on the 4th tiebreaker. They're 41 and 41.
Yeah.
The 2007 season, the Magic make the playoffs for the first time with Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
They're 40 and 42.
Exactly.
So you have these 500 seasons, and then the next season, obviously 1995, Magic first seed go to the finals. 2008, Magic win 52 games. Or 2008, Magic win 52 games, win the Southeast Division, beat the Raptors in the first round.
Yeah.
The Magic this year kind of made that step where they were 47 wins, 5 seed in the East. Obviously, they lose in 7 games in their playoff series. That's a pretty big accomplishment and a pretty big step forward. My whole thing all season long for the Magic was this young team doesn't know what they need, and they don't know what they need to work on until they get to the playoffs and see how teams poke them apart.
Yes.
And that's exactly what the Magic got this year. And so while I think it's fair to be disappointed that they ultimately didn't win Game 7, and I think maybe we should be more disappointed they didn't win Game 7, to be perfectly honest. This season was an unmitigated success and really does seem like it's setting the team up for a very bright future and to take another step next year.
No, I mean, I agree with you, Philip. I thought we should have won Game 7, But like you said, overall, the season was a huge success because we only should be going up from here. I think this team has a bright future, like you said, and to go from a team that wasn't even in the play-in discussion the previous year to go to the playoffs and win a few games. We could have been third, fourth, second seed. Like we were in the mix the whole year, and it was besides Boston, Boston was the clear number one seed in the East. And I love how Banchero this year improved and how he played in the playoffs. See, that showed me that like Banchero could be a leader for this team, not just in the regular season, but in the playoffs. The amount of success he was having was great. Franz also stepped up in the regular season, needed to play a little better on that last game, played okay. In some playoff games, he had some really good ones and some really bad ones, So, these two are going to be working together and just playing together, and they're just going to get better. And the Magic, just like I agree with you, have a bright future. And I'm so excited. And I was so happy with Mosley because he just had a great defensive plan for this team. We ranked in the top 5 or 6 in defense. We were always there. We were always making teams that score a lot play with our pace and our level, So I was really happy about that.
Yeah. I mean, and like that's all you can ask for. Like, I got it. Like, I know Jamal Mosley takes a lot of heat from fans, as every coach seems to do, but I've always been impressed with him, especially as a young coach who's never done this before.
Yeah.
He had a vision for this team for the last 3 years. Like exactly. This is Mo Wagner said this at various points throughout the course of the season. This year was not a like, oh, all of a sudden we're good type thing. Yeah. This was 3 years of working together, growing together to build this. And you could tell that there's a vision that Jamal Mosley had that everyone bought into and executed. Yeah. And B, you could tell everyone really felt ownership over this thing and they were deeply invested in this team's success. And I think that's a credit to the work that Jamal Mosley did and a credit to this whole organization. It's not just Mosley, it's Jeff Weltman. It's everybody really pulling toward the same goal. And you don't see that very often in the NBA, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I agree. And especially for such a young team to go. And they had that game 7, where they had the lead. And yes, but in a way they can learn from that. Next time they play, they'll be more equipped. It was their first time in the playoffs. I'm not trying to make like any excuses, but it is a learning. They always say this team needs more experience. Just look at OKC. They were number 1 seed and they just got eliminated. And they're
very similar way too.
Very similar way, So with us, it's very similar. Nobody even expected us to take the Cavs to game 7. People were saying 5 or 6, the Magic are done. People overlook this team, and that's what I love about this team too. People always overlook us and we always surprise everybody. Now Magic are on the map. People are talking about them. The media always ignores us, but when we do well like this, it's hard for us to ignore. Like we actually got talked about the playoffs and people see the bright future and they're going to see that, okay, this team is coming. But the only thing that I think that we're missing, and I think you would agree on this, Philip, is that we need that veteran presence as well. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think about this a lot, actually. I mean, I think the Magic ended up this year 4th in the league, 4th youngest team in the league. So that makes what they do that much more impressive. But I've always kind of believed that, as good as Shaq and Penny were, and they were inevitably going to get better as they got older, what really made the 1995 team a championship level team was adding Horace Grant. And Horace Grant was an all-star in 94, but you need a guy that's maybe been there. You hope, been there and can just keep, add to the team, be a major part, but also kind of keep everyone focused on the main task. And, say what you want about Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles was a really good addition to this team.
Yes,
like he kept everyone light, but you would see him get up and talk to Jamal Mosley or talk to a player as they're coming off the floor. You need guys that are coaches on the floor and can give like little pointers and little tips to players to kind of keep them. And I loved Joe by the end of the season. He was, very proud grandpa, was just like, these guys know what they're doing. I don't have to tell them very much anymore. Like they know what they're doing. And so you get that sense of calm from having a veteran with you. And I think people gave Gary Harris a hard time. I think some of it was deserved. I think some of it was just someone had to be scapegoated. And you're not going to scapegoat your 3 stars in this kind of a season. And look, Gary Harris didn't give the shooting that the Magic needed in the playoffs. I'm not going to pretend that he didn't, but Gary Harris was very much another stabilizer, a guy who, doesn't do anything loud, doesn't take the ball away from anybody, but helps everyone just play a little bit better or give them that little bit. So I think you're absolutely right. Like this is a young team. The Magic should embrace being young.
Yeah.
But I think they also need to find some veterans to just bring a level of seriousness and experience to elevate this team.
Yeah, I think that's what we need, a little bit more experience. Like you said, Joe Ingles, he was a good mentor, and he had that nice pick and roll that he was doing with Mo Wagner. That was almost unstoppable at points, but I think teams were finally figuring that out.
He's limited. He's just very limited.
Yeah.
He doesn't there's a lot of things that he does that fit what the Magic like, and there's a lot of things about him that do not fit what the Magic like. He's not super mobile, not super versatile, but he's smart. He's super smart. He's a super smart basketball player. He knows his limitations and plays around them. And I still think I don't think it's a sure thing that the Magic decline his team option. I think it's about 50-50 that he comes back next year. But they shouldn't let him go unless they know they can replace his kind of presence in the locker room.
Yeah, that's true. And I agree with the Gary Harris thing. My only thing with Gary Harris was he was getting injured too much.
Yeah, that's been his problem his whole career, though.
In and out of the line.
That's been his whole deal. The Magic are at a point where they need guys that are going to be available.
Yeah,
that's the issue.
But another player that I like who took a step up was Jalen Suggs. I thought he played really well. He was hitting clutch shots. I actually think he should have took more shots at times. I felt he was being a little too like Banchero, just holding the ball too much sometimes. Like I felt like Suggs could have took more shots because he was hitting pretty good from 3, almost like 40%. That's really good. And I liked his improvement as well. And his defense, Jalen Suggs' defense was just, everybody's talking about that. Like it was one of the best things for us. So I'm really excited to see. But who do you think that this Magic team would need to add to take that next step?
Yeah. I mean, like that's the who is going to be the ultimate question.
Exactly.
And I don't think there's a perfect guy that's available. Like honestly, the who should the Magic add? I would love to see Derek White on this Magic team. Derek White from the Celtics. Like when I'm thinking of like the point guard the Magic need, it's Derek White. And the Celtics aren't giving up Derek White, nor should they. He's very, very good for them. But as we watch through that playoff series, and like this was my point all year, like let's get to the playoff series. Let's see where the holes are. We're going to understand very, very clearly what this Magic team needs. Yeah. And I really think as good as Jalen Suggs played, as you said, he kind of showed he's not a point guard, that he's not a table setter. Yeah. He's not, you're right. I think he should attack a little bit more. And I think, one of the things the Magic did was, after he struggled so much with his decision-making and struggled so much with his driving in his first 2 seasons, I think they reeled him back and said, okay, we want you to focus on these 2-3 things. Don't worry and don't try and do too much on the other things. You're ultimately going to hurt your team if you do that. And Suggs is all about the team. So maybe there's an expansion there coming with an offseason of work. But I think the playoffs showed us that the Magic really do need a table setter. They need a point guard who can organize the team, kind of, I don't want to say meet out shots, but balance when the Magic go to those isolation plays with Paolo, or just ease, really more than anything, ease the burden off of Paolo Banchero. He's essentially the point guard for the team this year. That's asking a lot. So, when I look at this team, they don't need a ball dominant point guard. I've seen some people pitch that the Magic might, go after Chris Paul from the Warriors. I don't think they need.
I don't want that either. No.
Yeah, they don't need a Chris Paul type point guard. They don't need Chris Paul for sure. They don't need a Chris Paul type point guard who's just going to kind of coordinate and organize everything. They need someone who can play off of Paolo Banchero, who can hit his own shot, but can also attack and create for himself. So when I look at the free agent list, Tyus Jones is super popular among Magic fans. Trading for Anthony Simons, the more you look at Anthony Simons' numbers, the more I think like, okay, this is something that's real. I did a podcast with Mike Richmond of Locked On Blazers breaking down what a trade might look like. It's essentially Wendell Carter and 2 first-round picks is kind of the asking price, is kind of the general asking price from all the fake Anthony Simons trades I've seen. And with my podcast with Mike, he asked for Anthony Black instead of a second first round pick. So it's essentially 2 first round picks. I'm kind of counting Black as one of those. And then the other guy I would look at is like D'Angelo Russell from the Lakers. Just a good shooter. He's streaky shooter, but he can he could take over a game if you need him to.
Yeah.
He can play off of a guy like Paolo Banchero. He can play without the ball. Doesn't give you a lot defensively. That would be the issue. And that's the issue with Tyus Jones and Anthony Simons too. So there's no like perfect answer. Like Derek White is a perfect answer because he's a great defender. He can shoot off the shoot off the dribble. He can shoot threes. He can play point guard. He can play off ball. That's what the Magic are looking for. It's just, hard to find that perfect fit with who's available this summer. And so, the Magic are going to have to figure out what they can compromise and, fill this important need to have just kind of this guy to set everything up for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. Derek White would be great. A guy that I'm hearing is Klay Thompson. Now, I don't really want Klay Thompson. I don't know what your thoughts are exactly about Klay Thompson, but he has been heavily linked to the Magic, and they say that he's even interested in joining the Magic. What do you think about Klay Thompson possibly joining them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the attraction with Klay Thompson is that he is an excellent three-point shooter. Like the Magic need three-point shooting.
We need three-point shooters.
He is one of he could shoot. He could shoot like what Franz Wagner shot from 3, and he'd still have enough gravity to pull defenses apart. And so he'd help, like no doubt about it. I don't think he's the answer though. I just don't think he does enough for you on the ball. And I think the playoffs showed us the Magic need another guy who can attack. Like Paolo and Franz were just kind of banging their heads against a wall in the playoff series, trying to get into the paint. They need space. They need a spacer, but they need someone who can get them easy shots and kind of set them up. And Thompson's not really that guy. He's more of a movement shooter.
Yeah.
The Magic don't run they haven't had a movement shooter, so that may be why, but they don't really run an offense that's set up to create a lot of movement shots for someone like a Klay Thompson. I'd be worried about the age and the injury history.
Yes.
I think the Magic, need guys who are going to be available and not that Klay wasn't unavailable this season, but he's definitely a step slower than he was in his heyday. And then on top of that, you're probably paying $40 million a year. Yeah. So probably a 2-year, 75, 2-year, $80 million deal. You're throwing all your cap room in this important summer, this kind of last summer where you're going to have a lot of cap room at one guy. I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that's what the Magic need. If the Magic do something like that, I think they would chase after Paul George more than they would chase after Klay Thompson. I was
going to bring up next.
But even then, I'm real skeptical that that's the path that they go down.
Yeah, so you wouldn't want them to bring Paul George.
No.
But if you had to choose between the two, I would
take George. Yeah, because he could just do a little bit more. I'm sure he would be happy being a spot-up shooter or getting more spot-up opportunities, but he can also take over games. I would note that he has played only 70. He's played 70. He's failed to reach 70 games played in 4 of his last 5 seasons. The one was this past season, so injuries weren't an issue this year, but he's also like 34, 35. Yeah. He's getting up there.
You're not as well.
Yeah. You're not offering him, if you're offering him a 4-year deal, that's like his last big payday. And again, you're paying $150, $160 million total for him. That's a lot of money to commit to him when, your main guys are going to be Paolo and Franz moving forward. So, like, does he, the fit isn't as clean as I think people think it is. And I think the Magic have more pressing needs that they should resolve to help Paolo and Franz get better.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I agree with you with those players. But the reason why I brought up Paul George and Klay Thompson is these are the players that
the rumors are out there. Yeah, the stories are out there. And people talk like, look, people, when they think of free agency, they think of the Tim Duncan, Tracy McGrady, Grant Hill summer, where you're bringing in these big all-stars. Rashard Lewis, they brought in a big all-star. Horace Grant was an all-star.
Yeah.
When you think of like, oh, we have a ton of free agent money and we're a good team, let's just go get an all-star. Like that's not really how this works anymore. And it may not be the right thing to do with this group. Because
you also don't want to destroy all the young movement that we got going on.
Yeah. And I think Cleveland's a great example of that because, Darius Garland was the guy that scared me the most in that series.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was sitting there thinking like Donovan Mitchell's going to get his. Like there's no stopping Donovan Mitchell. You just got to make him work for it. Darius Garland, if he averages 20 a game in the series, the Magic have no chance because they're not going to be able to score enough. And when Darius Garland, he had a decent game 1, struggled in game 2, really struggled in games 3 and 4. When he really struggled, I asked Cavs people, I was like, what's going on with Darius Garland? And they're just like, he just hasn't had it all year. And some of it might be the jaw injury. And so you could maybe, wipe it away. But there was just a sense that he took too much of a backseat with Donovan Mitchell. And so I think the Magic should be wary of letting that happen to them.
Yes.
Not that it would, because Paolo's the dude. Like, everyone recognizes Paolo's the dude, but you never know. I don't want to get in the way of developing those, especially Paolo and Franz, into the players that the Magic think they can be.
Yeah, and like, people always put us with these like free agents, and then we don't end up getting them. Like, I remember last year they were talking about Max Strus a lot. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah,
and he ended up with the Cavs. So I don't know. They always say the Magic are going to go for these type of players, and they don't, because
I like, some of it is that, the national media especially,
yes,
still kind of view the Magic as a, woe-begotten team that has somehow stumbled into being good.
Yeah.
And they need to go quick. And that's just not who the Magic are. I read and consume a lot of what national media say about Orlando. And I'm just like, that you guys, like, you clearly haven't watched this team at all. They
don't understand. Like, we built our team purely through the draft, mostly,
Yeah. And look, this team, like, I don't want to sit here and pretend otherwise.
Yeah.
This team needs to add a starter. I like Gary Harris. Gary Harris is not a starter in this league anymore.
Yeah.
The Magic need to find a starter in that second guard spot next to Jalen Suggs.
Yes.
And they are going to have to spend to get that. They're going to spend, someone's going to spend $22 million to go get Malik Monk. They'll spend $18 to $20 million to get Tyus Jones. They will spend money to get that player, but they've got roughly you got somewhere between 32 and 40. $45 million. They got money to spend this summer. They got to spend it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean you throw it all at one person. I do think it means you're splitting it up, between a couple different people.
Yeah, which is good. I think it'd be better split. You create more depth that way too. And in case, because like Paul George, like you said, he's been injured before. He has never played a full season in a long time. You don't want to risk that. And then Klay Thompson, he's been injured, and not only that, he's old and declining. He can still shoot, but it's not what we need.
His defense is not what it was.
And his defense
at the
heyday. It used to be really good. His defense is not the same, and you got to pay him like 35, 40.
Yeah, you got to pay veteran prices. And on top of this, and this is the part I think everyone's either forgetting or not thinking. They're playing checkers, not chess here.
Yes.
They got to. Probably the most important move the Magic make this offseason is signing extensions for Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Take care of those two guys now. Just get it done. Don't let that linger into the season. Like, they'll re-sign them next summer. They'll match anything anyone gives them. But those two, take care of those two guys now.
Oh, for sure.
Then you got to take care of Paolo next summer.
Yeah.
So really, to me, the big thing is Jeff Weltman's even said this. The bill is coming due. All these great draft picks you've made. Now you got to actually pay these players. They're coming off their rookie scale salaries. Now you got to pay all these players. So, how are you going to pay them? Like how do those contracts align? How much payroll are you willing to put on? So you're going to, Franz Wagner is going to make $25, $26, $27 million a year. Paolo's going to be at 30, 31, 32. Jalen Suggs probably going to be at 21, 22, 23 a year.
Yeah.
So that's nearly $70 million. And then you're going to add a $40 million contract on top of that. How are you going to fill out the rest of your roster? Because depth was a big factor for this team too. So that's something they got to be thinking about this summer as well.
Yes, I agree. We need to focus on depth. Another, besides like point guard, I think we need like a true center. I don't think Wendell fits that. Like, he's better at a power forward position, or maybe even coming off the bench, he would be great. But I don't think he's a starting center in this league. What is your thoughts about Wendell?
So I think Wendell Carter is a starting center in this league. Like center is his position. He is not a power forward in this.
Really?
This league.
Okay, because he's kind of.
But this is the key but here. I'm not sure Wendell Carter is a starting center on a championship level team.
Yeah.
Because I think you need a guy who can play above the rim, who can block shots. And Wendell Carter is an excellent defender, but he really relies on his positioning, and he was not healthy in these playoffs. Like he did not have a great post playoff series. He was not healthy, and he was still the best center option the Magic had.
Yes.
But I think that the Magic needs someone, you know, I've been eyeing Isaiah Hartenstein for 3 years now. He's a restricted free, he's a free agent with early bird rights for the Knicks. So the Magic could easily make an offer that would be very difficult for the Knicks to match, or the Knicks would have to move some stuff around to match.
I think that Hartenstein would be a good.
Hartenstein would be great, and he can shoot it a lot better than he's shown with the Knicks. Like his shot has come a long way. The Knicks have, you know, but like the Magic need a guy who can hard roll to the basket, play above the rim, catch lobs in traffic, block some shots, like make some defensive plays. It's not that Wendell Carter, you know, Wendell Carter, the rap on him in the draft was he is a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yes.
And that's kind of that kind of labels dogged him his entire career. And frankly, it still feels like that's his problem, is he's really good at a lot of things, and he's really good at them, but he's not a master at something that elevates the team or stands out in the playoffs. Because, you know, I say this a lot about offense in the playoffs. The playoffs are really about what can you do when the other team knows exactly what you're trying to do against them. Can you beat a defense that is game planning specifically to stop the thing you're trying to do?
Yes.
That's the same defensively. And so Carter's solid, but he's not spectacular. And I think, I think that's
up to another level.
Yeah. But by the same token, you know, and look, I think if the Magic make a trade, it's probably involving Wendell Carter, and it brings in a guard or brings in a center. So it's definitely on the table. At the end of the day, Carter is fine for now. It's not the most pressing. I don't feel, at least, it's the most pressing thing. When I look at the playoffs, the most pressing thing to me is this Magic team needs another point guard, needs a point guard and table setter. They need a guy that can just get downhill a little bit and cause a defense to collapse, and, you know, put Paolo, you know, get the ball to Paolo in spots where he can score comfortably rather than having Paolo create everything for himself. Just, they need to ease that burden off of him. And that, to me, is the biggest priority for the summer. The center question can be delayed for a summer or two.
Yes, no, I agree. We definitely need somebody who can facilitate the ball and all that and things like that. And there's some people from the bench that at times they were playing really good when they got their minutes. Like Caleb Houston, he was hitting some shots when needed.
And he had a little stretch, Yeah,
he had a stretch, but then he became inconsistent and he wasn't doing it anymore. You know, we drafted Anthony Black. I don't know
what he should have been playing.
Yeah, he should have been playing.
The bench was really good. Don't get me wrong. Fourth highest scoring bench in the league. They won this team a lot of games.
Yeah.
But honestly, this is how I describe the Magic team. The Magic team are like a house of cards, where the thing stands when all the pieces fit perfectly together. But when you ask someone to do a little bit more, when you ask someone to go beyond kind of their perfect prescribed role, that's when they really struggled. Like the way I would describe it is, the Magic have, Paolo's an A, Franz is an A, Jalen's a B, Carter's a B, C, whatever it is. But when Franz Wagner had to miss games, Jalen Suggs couldn't elevate into an A. He couldn't elevate into that second guy next to Paolo. And that, I think you see that throughout the entire bench group. Like Caleb Houston, the idea of Caleb Houston's great, did not perform the way that the Magic needed him to perform. Yes. And they found themselves needing a shooter and needing shooting, and they didn't trust Anthony Black. Maybe they should have, maybe they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But they didn't trust Anthony Black to fill that role, and so they kept turning back to Caleb Houston, and he kept kind of falling short of what the Magic needed. They really like him. They say he works really hard. I don't think you shouldn't give up on a kid who's 21 years old.
Yeah.
That has shown some potential, but it's a big summer for him where, he's kind of in the same boat as Chuma. He's kind of in the same boat that Chuma Okeke was in this year, where you got to prove it this year, or, we don't have the time to wait for you anymore.
Exactly. I feel bad for Okeke because I really was, hoping that he would be that guy that would take the next step, but he's just hasn't done much.
Injuries just slowed him down too much.
Slowed him down. Yeah, exactly. But the thing about Caleb Houston is he did show at times he could be that guy. He just wasn't consistently.
He's young. And you got to give him credit. I think he was the youngest player in his draft class. He is super young. He's still a baby.
So,
but it's his third year now. So, you got to show us something.
Jett Howard, I want to see what he does too, when he's going to get his starting time and what he's going to be able to do for this team. What is your thoughts about Jett Howard?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Magic's if there was an argument to make, it's that the Magic should have, when Caleb Houston had 2 straight 1 for 6 games or 1 for 5 games, they should have thrown Jett Howard in there just to see what it looked like.
Yeah.
And so I do think the Magic, in some respects, mismanaged both Jett Howard and Anthony Black.
Yes.
We got to the playoffs and certain things weren't working, and everyone's like, well, put Anthony Black in. I was just like, they haven't played Anthony Black for 2 months. Like, you can't just throw him in there. He's not ready.
Yeah.
And there's some reasons maybe for that they didn't feel comfortable doing that. But, one area where I think Jamahl Mosley should have been better at, and maybe something he learned as he looks back at how he prepared for the playoffs, you got to have everybody ready. And so that means sometimes you play a guy that's out of the rotation just to keep him fresh and keep him locked in. And, I think it was always the plan for Jett Howard to spend the majority of the year in the G League. I think the Magic overdrafted him. Because no one had him at 11.
Yes.
But I think the Magic really did. I think the Magic overdrafted him with the understanding, like, hey, you're going to the G League this year. You're going to spend the year, work on these 3 things. We know what you can do shooting wise, but you're going to work on these 3 things. We want you to play like tons of minutes, not like back end rotation minutes. And that was the plan. What's important for the Magic, I think, is that both Jett Howard and Anthony Black enter training camp with a path to play, with an opportunity to play. They got to earn it, but they both need the opportunity to play. Anthony Black, to me, is an NBA player. Like, he can play.
Yeah,
he's
an
excellent defender. I'd love to see him fill in the Markelle Fultz minutes next year. I think that's like what Black can give you what Fultz gave you last year. And I know Fultz was injured and all that, but Black can give you what Fultz gave you. So I'm fine. I'm fine with that. Howard's got to find his role and that he's got to earn it, and he's got to show how much better he's gotten defensively, especially in summer league, to get ready for training camp.
Yeah, I was also surprised with one other player that Mosley didn't play that much, and that's Goga Batadze. What was your thoughts on that? Because I kind of he was playing well at a certain point.
Yeah, it's
completely went off of
him. I mean, it was there's just no room. Like, you're not playing him alongside Carter or Wagner. So there's just no room for him to play. Again, same deal. Like, probably should have every so often thrown Batadze in there just to keep him fresh and just to see what it looks like against certain opponents. Like, he had that big game against the Bulls that the Magic won in overtime, saved that game. Like, putting him in that situation was something that saved that game. But I don't know if he would have helped in the playoffs, because the problem was spacing and how cluttered the paint was. And Batadze ain't scaring anybody outside of a couple feet. And, as good as he played and the Magic did a good job squeezing every bit they could out of him, he's still a very flawed player. The problem with the Magic is they have a lot of like flawed players, and they're all flawed in a lot of the same ways. And so the guys they could count on to do the things they needed in the playoffs, they weren't. A lot of them weren't performing.
That is a great point. We have a lot of players with a lot of different flaws. Now, I'd say the same thing like what you said with Anthony Black. Yeah, he can play, but he can't really shoot that well. Same thing with Markelle Fultz. Can't really shoot that well. Yes, he can do all the other things, but there's always
they didn't like. And this is the part that frustrated me, because I really like AB. I really like Anthony Black. They did not run him as a point guard all year long. Like, he was brought in as a point guard.
Yeah,
like that's what he was advertised as. And he's playing a lot off the ball. And look, his shot came a long way from summer league to regular season. His shot looked completely different, and it was awesome to see that growth. And I'm really excited to see him at summer league this year, because I think we're going to see him take another leap. Like, he's going to look like a player who's ready to do something this year. But they really didn't develop him as a point guard, which was very odd to me. And so it was just like the things that the Magic needed are like, theoretically, Anthony Black can do that, but he hasn't shown that all year. They haven't used him like that all year. So you can't, why would you turn and trust him in a game 5 or game 6 or game 7 even, when he hasn't done that all year? At a certain point, you got to trust the guys you trust. There's a reason why playoff rotations shrink. You got to trust who you trust and trust what got you there. And at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, we talked about like guys like Gary Harris, Markelle Fultz. I don't expect them to be back. Some players obviously are not going to be back.
Yeah.
Who would you say those players are?
Yeah, I would expect Gary Harris and Markelle Fultz to move on. I think there's a small chance they re-sign one of them to a lesser contract, but that's like end of July. That's like end of the free agency rush. Like I don't see them as like major priorities. Chuma KK is probably gone too. So you have, three potential roster spots open. Plus, the draft pick's going to fill in one of those. I imagine they'll either sell off the second round pick or send that pick to the G League again. Or use a two-way spot on that pick. Again, like that's what those tools are there for. I think that I'm still 50-50 on whether Joe Ingles comes back. I think if they decline Ingles' team option, to me, that's a sign that they're going to do something very big, that they need the extra money. Otherwise, I don't see a reason why to let Ingles go. Like even if he's just sitting on the bench being a good veteran, like he's still really valuable. He'll still fill in when you need him to fill in. Like he's happy. He's so happy here. He loves it in Orlando. So, you're looking at 3 to 4 roster spots that are going to open up. One's going to go to the draft pick if they keep it, and then 3 to free agents or 2 to free agents.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's those players that are probably mostly gone, unless like they take a team friendly deal is the only way to come back, because the Magic have, money and they could spend it in many different ways that we just talked about earlier, which will be great. I really like the Anthony Simons. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's been a popular one among Magic fans. I was really skeptical of it because I was just like, what does Orlando have that Portland wants? Yeah. And at the end of the day, like I talked to Mike Richmond of Locked On Blazers, and you can go back, did that pod last week if you want to go back and listen to it.
Yes.
To me, he said, frankly, our goal in Portland is get under the luxury tax. Like we're a tax team and the worst team in the Western Conference. So if they can sell Simons for less salary and a couple of first round pick, they'd be very happy. And so Orlando's in the position to do something like that because, everyone talks about cap room in terms of free agents. Cap room is also really valuable for trades because you can take in more money and absorb that extra money into your cap room rather than having to match salaries. And so, Portland, the deal that we came up with was Simons for Carter, Black, and a first round pick. I tried to talk him out of Black and say, can I give you the Denver pick in 25? Yes. He wanted the Magic's pick. And it's just like, whatever. Like the negotiating that here is not the point of the exercise. Yeah. And then eventually I said, if we're going to do that, can we expand it? And can I get Robert Williams back too? Which would, again, does Portland need Robert Williams? He's injured a lot, but he's a guy who's a playoff performer, good shot blocker. He's been in the playoffs. Yeah. Good shot blocker. Would be an interesting option as a starting center. I'd still want a starter caliber backup to just in case, but gives a Magic a dynamic at center that they don't have in Wendell Carter as a rim protector. He dealt with I think it was a shoulder issue, missed essentially the whole season. I think he played against Orlando in the second game of the year, and that was about it.
Yeah.
But I came out of the podcast thinking like it's a steep price. I don't know if I'm willing to pay 2 firsts for Anthony Simons, but Anthony Simons was a 40% catch and shoot 3-point shooter. That's a guy that averaged 22 points per game, on a bad team, but can do that. And someone who can play off the ball, play on the ball as a point guard. Like if we can get him to buy in defensively and commit a little bit defensively, there's something there. Like it's not, he's got the size the Magic like. It doesn't feel impossible. So there's a deal out there like that we're not even thinking of, or a player out there. Like I've pitched to a few people. I don't particularly like this fully because of the age and injury concerns. But I pitched to people, would New Orleans do a CJ McCollum, Wendell Carter swap? If New Orleans is going to let Jonas Valanciunas go, Wendell Carter would be a great center to pair with Zion Williamson because Carter can spread the floor and guard those bigger centers that Zion can't handle. Magic at CJ McCollum, who, again, can set the table a little bit as a point guard, but is a great shooter, can create a little bit for himself. You're not asking him to be the star. He's essentially playing the same role he's playing in New Orleans. Only concern is age. It's a very hefty salary. He's getting paid like near $40 million the next 2 years. Injury concerns are a big deal with him too, and he's a little bit on the smaller side, has never been a good defender. But there's something there. Like I pitched it to some New Orleans people, and they're like, yeah, I think New Orleans would think about that. Yeah. So there's stuff all around the league. People are starting to pitch Darius Garland trades and Donovan Mitchell trades. And,
I really would like Donovan Mitchell. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, I'm not sold that the Magic are quite ready for a Donovan Mitchell type.
They're not.
They don't want. Dom's great. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Kill the Magic in the playoffs. Like I don't want to sound
he
like he wouldn't help
great the team in the playoffs. Yes.
But one of the problems Cleveland had is the Cavs became Donovan Mitchell's team. Yeah. And Darius Garland got lost in the shuffle, and Evan Mobley's development got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
We don't want to lose. Paolo Banchero is
Darius
much
Garland
higher.
Could be a good fit.
Darius Garland, I think, would be a very good fit with this team. But again, we'll see. What the cost is, because Cleveland, I think, is going to want a pound of flesh. Because they're trying to make up ground because of what they paid to get Donovan Mitchell. Mm-hmm. But there are teams all over the place. They're going to be retooling and rethinking themselves based on their results, and the Magic are a team that can take advantage of all that.
Yeah, that's true. I think we both agree that the Magic need to add somebody. We just don't know who it's going to be exactly.
At least one starter.
At least one starter.
One $20 million a year starter at minimum.
At minimum, yeah. Because they have the money to spend, and we're so close to being like, we went to playoffs with this team. It's just going to get better.
Yeah, they're not far. They were up 8. They were a half away from being in the second round. Like
I know,
really. that they are that good, and we need to stop pretending like they are.
and like I'm not saying let's say we played Boston. I'm not saying we would have beat Boston, but we would have gave them problems. Every time we play them, we give them a tough.
Orlando's always given Boston problems. Yeah. The Porzingis matchup is the one that scares me. But Porzingis didn't play in that round.
But he also got injured, so we could have maybe won it. I'm not saying we would have won the series. I'm just saying we would have given him a tough time and maybe take it to 6 or whatever. The thing that
I would have had Celtics in 5, but
really?
Boston's good.
I agree. Boston's amazing.
You just got to get Boston to get into their own heads. That's the trick to beating.
I'm saying with Porzingis being injured, because I think he got injured in the Cleveland series. The problem with Cleveland is they don't really have size. Like Orlando has more size. I feel like that's why they match up a little better. That's what I was trying to say. I would say especially with Jared Allen going down.
But this is what it gets to with Orlando. Like when you think about a title team, you have to do something unique. Like to be a title contender, you got to do something that no one else in the league does as well as you.
Yes, exactly.
And the one thing the kind of guiding philosophy for the Magic and the way they've built their roster is they've got 2 6'10" guys who are point guards. Who can run the show. And that's different. There are just very few teams who are equipped to defend that, who are equipped to defend. You're going to stick, I joked before the series with the Cavs, the trick to this series for the Magic is whoever Evan Mobley isn't guarding, that's who you lead with. So if Evan Mobley's on Paolo, give the ball to Franz, let him, put Paolo on the weak side, keep Mobley away from Franz and let Franz attack.
Right.
If they put Mobley on Franz, Paolo attacks. And without Dean Wade, who's a really good defender for Cleveland, Orlando always had one player with a size advantage. It was just about whether they could hammer it down and take advantage of it. And Paolo did that over and over again. Every time Isaac Okoro was on him, he was licking his lips and just waiting for Cleveland to double him. That's kind of the Magic's deal. And again, there are not many teams that are equipped to handle that. There really aren't. Like Indiana kind of can, but they're not great defensively. New York kind of could, Cleveland with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen kind of could, although I think Cleveland was better without one of those two bigs on the floor. Boston can when they have Porzingis.
Yes.
Minnesota can with Gobert backing up Cat, but Cat's attackable. But there just aren't a lot of teams that can, the Clippers could. The Clippers can handle that a little bit with the size that they have, but there just aren't a lot of teams that can handle that kind of size, and that's kind of the Magic's theory of the case here.
I know. That's what I really like about Franz and Banchero is their size and their length in terms of that. The only thing I didn't like about Franz, and maybe you agree with this, is his shooting percentage from 3.
Yeah, it was just a bad year. I don't know why he shot so poorly. It was just a bad year.
Was it just something in his head, or
I think at some point it became something like that.
Yeah.
Like he kept shooting. Like I'll give him credit. He kept shooting, but there were definitely times where he'd miss a few, and you could see him passing up open shots, and it'd just be like, Franz, I don't care if you make or miss a shot. You got to take the shot.
Yeah, you're wide open. You got to take
it. Yeah. And so, look, the guy shot 35% in his first 2 seasons in the league.
Yeah.
Until he has another 29% 3-point shooting season, I'm taking this as an outlier. I think he'll be, I think he's got, that dude is seething over his Game 7 performance. Like if you as a Magic fan are disappointed in the way Franz played in Game 7, Franz is 100 times more disappointed than you.
Oh, yeah.
And I have no doubt that dude is going to spend his offseason getting himself ready. He's going to play in the Olympics, and he's going to have a really good Olympics. Germany will be the favorite to win the silver medal, if not compete with Team USA to win the gold. Franz Wagner is going to be ready to play.
Yeah, I'm not worried.
I'm not worried about him.
I'm not worried about Franz. He
was, and to this point, Franz Wagner was literally better at every other thing that he did. He scored more points. He got to the foul line more. He got more rebounds. He got more assists. His mid-range shooting was better. He got to the basket more, finished around the basket more, and at a higher percentage. He did everything better this year except 3-point shooting. So, we've been saying this. We said this all year. The Magic haven't had a duo of players score 20 points per game in the same season since Shaq and Penny in 1996. Paolo and Franz are going to do it next year. Like that's done. That's going to happen.
Exactly.
Like that is a done deal in my book. I'm going to retire. I'm going to have to find new stats that these guys have done that haven't been done in forever. Like I retired my Steve Francis stat. I'm retiring the Penny and Shaq one. We're going to have to find some new stats because we're running out of ways to describe what this duo of players are doing. The Magic haven't had a duo like this in a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, Franz had an awful Game 7. It was the worst time to have that type of game, but I don't.
It's just one game.
It's one game. It's not something that he does consistently. I'd be more worried if that happened consistently.
Yeah,
obviously, that's not the case. We know he's one of the best finishers when it comes to coming around the rim. He's got a good mid range. He just needs to work on his 3-ball, and he shot better the year before. So I don't know, maybe something just, he just something in his head. I felt like it was a lot mental with him.
Yeah, at a certain point, it became a mental block. Like he knew his percentages. Like he knew he was struggling from there, and he'll get through it. I'm no doubt about that.
I think he'll bounce back, and he'll have a better season next year, like 20 points, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything you want to talk about?
I think we had a lot of big highlights of the offseason. I mean, this is as exciting a time as there's been to be a Magic fan in a very, very long time. Like this is the fun part. The ascent is the fun part because, just everything is new and you're just excited for everything. Mm-hmm. This team is very good. And it wouldn't surprise me if they take a minor step back next year, just because they're going to add some new pieces and there's going to be expectation on them for the first time. But this team has all the makings and the skeleton of a team that's going to be very good the next 5-6 years. And I have no doubt that, we're looking at the next kind of generation of, the next Magic finals run coming up here in the next 2-3 years.
Yeah, that is true, because one thing you could think about this team is that these players have stayed together mostly.
Yeah.
Like they're young and they stay together, and there's going to be differences. Like we said, there's going to be a few players that are gone and a few new players. And we're going to see how that, either improves the Magic but it's not going to be much of a difference. I think we still would end up around the same, the same seating, hopefully.
Yeah, no. I mean, look, that top 4 is going to be tough to crack.
Yeah.
You assume Cleveland will take a step, may take a step back. They may take a step forward, but you're looking at Boston, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Orlando, and now, Indiana, New York. That's already 7 teams that are pretty
And then
good.
There's Miami Heat and other
teams. Miami's going to hang around. Yeah. That's your 8. Is there going to be a team outside of the 8 that's going to break through? Maybe Atlanta can break through into that top 8, but it sure feels like that top 8 in the East is relatively settled now for a little while. It's going to be like the West. It's going to be one game decides whether you're the 4 seed or the 8 seed. Like it's going to be like that now for a while. And so, the Magic are going to have to take care of themselves. They can't worry about what everyone else is doing. They got to take care of themselves.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is great that you came on here and that we had this discussion. I think Magic fans need to talk more on social media and be really proud of this team. Because like I said, beginning of the season, I was hoping to be a 9th seed, and we ended up being 5th, and we were a game of going either up or down or whatever.
That's life, though.
So close.
Like, people don't understand. Like, people are like fretting, and I was just like, guys, like, this is life. Like, the West is like this every year. Like, this is what being in the playoffs is like. Yeah. It's stressful. It's the worst.
It was so stressful, and it's the worst. At the end of the season when it came.
And like, look, like people were complaining during that last week when they lost to Houston, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia. I was just like, guys, I told you in August that this was how it was going to be. Like, the Magic needed to get their work done early. But they got it done. Like, again, they ended up exactly where they needed to be. They did exactly what they were supposed to do, and now we see what comes next.
I agree, Philip, but I think at the end of the week, at the end of like the last week, we also had terrible luck. And the reason why I'll say that, Joel Embiid missed like most of the season, but he comes back to play us.
That's the NBA, though, man.
I know.
And the Magic played well that game. And the Sixers looked like the 2nd seed Sixers. It was just like, well, what are you supposed to do? Like, the Magic came out of that game where like, we played really well. Philadelphia's just really, really good. And now we got to go home and we got to take care of our business. And that's exactly what they did.
Philly, if they had Embiid the whole season, they would have been a completely different seeding. Yep. They would have been a completely different team.
Philadelphia during the regular season with Embiid and Maxey in the lineup were the second best team in the Eastern Conference. Like Boston was better, but Philadelphia was the 2 seed in the East, except for Embiid being out. When they were fully healthy all year long, they dominated teams.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
But injuries are part of this. Injuries are part of life. You gotta like New York losing Game 7 today. Like that's all injuries, man.
I was really surprised about. I mean,
Milwaukee losing Indiana. Like, not that Indiana didn't deserve it, but Milwaukee not having Giannis for that series, like that.
And it all came down to the final game. There was one game that if we lost, we're a play-in. If we win, we beat the Bucks. Oh my God,
that's life, man.
And we were losing to the Bucks, and we came back and won that game, the last game of the season.
That's life, man.
I know, and I was like, oh, thank God, Damian Lillard was off that game. Like, he's never really off like that.
I mean, he was hurt too. Like he was really hurt.
Yeah. And he was off. And I also remember in the beginning of the season, people thought the Bucks were going to go far, but because of injuries, they got decimated. So that's why health is so important, and depth that we talk about. Depth is so important, especially for a young team like this. You
got to be able to survive the injuries. Like Orlando's been talking about it. It talked about it exit interviews. When they look back at their season, they don't regret that last week of the season. They regret losses in January and February when they were hurt and they were dealing with that illness that went through the team. Like those were the losses that stung them. Like losing to Miami on the road when Miami was out a bunch of people and half the Orlando team was sick. Like that was that turned out to be a humongous game in a lot of ways. Right. And like losing those games are the ones that kill you. And so like, losing that double overtime game to Sacramento was huge. Beating Denver on the road was huge. Like those are the games that matter. And so being able to survive those doldrums when guys are out is really key.
Yeah, I agree, man. But what a season. I'm really looking forward to the off season. I know you are, to write the articles, and I read your articles all the time. So looking forward to see what you say. And it's funny because I was looking at it and I'm like, wait, Phil, that's the Locked On Magic guy. That's that guy. So you're doing a great job over there. And
appreciate it.
I would like to come on your channel sometime in the future, talk Magic, because I love the Magic. I've been a Magic fan since I was born in '89, so I've been a Magic fan since the '90s. I grew up in New York, but I've always been a Magic fan. Never liked any other.
Appreciate that. Yeah, we like.
And then Philip, I liked them so much that last year I moved to Orlando. So
nice. There you go.
I just want to say, thank you for coming on. This was so much fun. I have you on Twitter, so we can always talk again there. And, if you want to plug anything, this is the time to do it. This is your time. Where people can find you, just talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. The best place to find me is on Locked On Magic. You can download that wherever you download podcasts. We're on YouTube as well. 5 days a week. We're 5 days a week until the end of July, until the end of free agency. So still plenty to talk about with the Orlando Magic. I will find something to talk about for 30 minutes. Like, trust me, I will find something. Yeah. You can find that wherever you download podcasts again. And then also check out my writing over at orlandomagicdaily.com, where I'm a senior writer over there. You can check. That's where I put most of my writing is as well.
Check out his articles. I've definitely been reading them lately because it's the off season and I'm trying to see what the Magic are going to do while I'm watching the NBA playoffs as well. But yeah, thank you for coming on. Like, this was so much fun. Let's coordinate. Let's do more live streams, either my channel, your channel, or videos or whatever. I think it's great for Magic fans to have discussions, like this. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciated it, Philip. And we live in Orlando. Maybe we can catch up sometime.
Yeah, maybe.
That'd be great, I just want to thank everybody for watching this video. Please check out his YouTube channel. Give me the link to your newspaper. I'll put it in there, the articles and all that. I'll put all your information down in the description. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for making time. And see you around the bend, everybody. Have a great one. Take care. Peace out. And I'll upload this. And this was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on.